Okay, we have Mr. Stone in here, a busy man. Thank you so much for your time, for coming in. I very much appreciate it.
Great to be here. Look, I always want to help another Italian American. You know, people say, Roger Stone, what are you, English? Let's be very clear. Stone is a name plucked out of thin air by a clerk at Ellis Island. My family name is Corvo. We're from Sicily. I'm also half Hungarian, but because I'm so well dressed, people think I'm a wasp, but there's nothing waspy about me. You know, I've spent a lot of time in South Philly. I spent a lot of time in Atlantic City and the Jersey Shore. We know a lot of good people in common. So for me, it's a privilege to be here and talk about anything you want.
Oh, thank you. You know what I miss from up there is loyalty. The loyalty, like with guys like that, from Philly, Jersey, is so different. When I moved down here to Florida, to South Florida, that was the first thing that caught me, was that up there there's more loyalty. Here I found that there will be people that wait around 3-4 years when you have a business that you're running, and they're waiting just for that one moment that you're vulnerable, and they hit you.
Well, the thing I miss the most from there is the perfect clams linguine, which it's really easy to screw up. I mean, it's a simple dish.
Yeah.
But I go to places in South Florida where there's cream in there. I mean, they just screw it up. So that's one thing that I miss. I also miss, because I'm originally from Connecticut, I miss the pizza out of New Haven, Sally's and Pepe's, the classic pizza war. I've been on both sides. I love Frank Pepe's pizza, but I'm also a fan of Sally's. People who from Connecticut will understand this. It's a special style of pizza. I miss that. In politics, there is no loyalty. You know, if you want to meet real, genuine, honest people, you should go to Los Angeles and show business, because politics is riddled with climbers and phonies and temporary friends. I mean, I have a 40-year American political career, and not much surprises me. I've worked for 4 presidents. I've been involved in 10 national presidential campaigns. I've had a successful syndicated radio show. I'm not only a New York Times bestselling author, but I've also written 3 Amazon bestsellers on historical political matters. My first book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. You can snicker all you want, read the book, and then you'll tell me at the end of it the son of a bitch did it, because he did. Mm-hmm. And I'm not an attorney, but I make a very compelling case. I use eyewitness evidence, fingerprint evidence, a lot of deep Texas politics. I connect a lot of dots. And I'm proud of, I document everything in all of my books. I wrote a book on Watergate called Nixon's Secrets that tells you what a fraud that whole thing is, that the Washington Post, Woodward, and Bernstein narrative is just a total fraud. Those guys are both scamsters. They make a lot of crap up and claim it as fact.
So, Mr. Stone, are you telling me that you actually use facts to do your books?
I do. It's very rare.
Holy hell.
It's very rare. But you can go to stonecoldtruth.com and go to the store, and you can get an autographed copy. The book that I'm really proudest of, you and I are both huge aficionados of Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince.
Correct.
My copy is very dog-eared. I've been through it over and over again. But as you know, it was written in a different century. So in order to help people, I wrote Stone's Rules. Now, here's the thing about this book. You don't have to be a conservative or a Republican or a Trump supporter or a progressive or a Bernie Sanders supporter or a liberal or a vegetarian or not interested in politics or not involved in politics. You could be a farmer. You could be in tech. You could be in entertainment. You could run a gas station. If you're in business or politics, this book can help you. These are not partisan. These are the things I've learned just as general rules in life. And people say to me, I remember when 29 FBI agents kicked down your door and you had the full force of the federal government trying to put you away. How did you survive? I'll tell you how I survived. 1, by the grace of God. That's why. Because I turned my life back to Jesus Christ. But secondarily, because I followed the rules in this book.
Right.
So I highly recommend it to you. If you haven't read it, it's a little lighter than this. You'll laugh at parts of it. Niccolò Machiavelli was not known for his sense of humor, but I think it's a good read.
It's a great read, and it's Niccolò Machiavelli, modern with a lot of laughs, and just and it can be used in everything.
Right. Anybody can use
Business, politics, relationships.
it. Yes.
That book, your book, is the modern day, in my opinion, the way of life.
Well, unfortunately,
And how you deal with things, and also how to win and go about things.
I mean, in all honesty, my first book, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ, became a success because word spread on Facebook and because I was able to make it available through Facebook very effectively. Now I am banned for life at Facebook based on a inaccurate claim that I owned 100 fake Facebook pages, and also that I use my Facebook presence to spread unacceptable or it's hard to say. In other words, I'm sorry, I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy, and I do think there was a conspiracy. Under the First Amendment, I'm able to say that, and people can discuss it. There have been many, many, many great books, and researchers have proven that. They may not reach the final conclusion that I did, that Lyndon Baines Johnson had the motive, means, and opportunity, and as we Italians say, cui bono, who benefited.
Yep. You're exactly
Remember
right.
the famous picture of Lyndon Johnson on the airplane being sworn in?
I do.
Why did he do that? He doesn't need to be sworn in. He automatically becomes president upon the death of the president, and no ceremony was necessary.
Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Huh?
But he had to have Jackie, whose husband he just killed, standing next to him, splattered in blood.
Yeah.
And the two best things here are, if you look at the pictures, look at Lady Bird Johnson.
Yeah.
She was the real hater. Johnson was a softie compared to her. There's a huge grin on her face.
Pull her up. Pull
Huge
her.
grin. And then,
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing
and then there's a great piece of video. There's a segregationist congressman from Texas who's a Johnson crony, and he winks at Johnson, and Johnson winks back at him.
Oh.
It's all there on YouTube. You can find it.
Well, what's her name again?
Lady Bird Johnson. I would say LBJ swearing in Air Force One. And I do the Google image search as much as I Google our fish-faced enemies of the people. But you'll see the story. So anyway, it is.
So they not.
That's her. She was one mean bitch.
Man, she looks mean.
And she was a tough political operator. She was a woman of great grace. She was very quiet, but she was a very powerful force between Lyndon Johnson. She was, her husband was not a day at the beach.
Wow, that might explain half of it.
Well, I mean, my book is also a personal profile. Lyndon Johnson was a famous liar. He stole his way into the Senate through chicanery with the ballot boxes. He was a sadist who enjoyed torturing the people who worked for him. He was a pill popper. He was an alcoholic. He was a womanizer, a chain smoker. He was just audacious when he was drunk. He was very vindictive and very mean, and he understood power politics perhaps any better than anyone in this century. He was a master politician. He didn't understand, as the country moved into the television age, that the old political bosses were going to lose their power. In other words, voters were now going to vote based on what they saw on TV instead of what the neighborhood precinct captain told them to do.
Right.
So Jack Kennedy was ahead of him, and Kennedy was the perfect candidate for the television age, and Lyndon Johnson was not an attractive guy. But anyway, I think it's a good read, and I'm proud of it. The real issue here is the censorship on the internet, not just Facebook, but Facebook, Instagram, all of them, where essentially there is central control and censorship, not just now of the internet, but of all mass communications, meaning network, cable TV, increasingly radio, although radio is the last frontier of freedom, print media, certainly, the mainstream internet-based media, and now people are being kneecapped on Facebook and Twitter and so on. I can tell you this, on Facebook, if you say Roger Stone anywhere in a posting, you will be shadow banned. The second time you say it, you'll be deplatformed. That's just a fact.
So what happened to freedom of free speech?
Well, unfortunately, interestingly enough, those who have tried to sue the tech giants on First Amendment grounds, like that buffoon Chuck Johnson, have lost. That's unfortunately, although it's a logical argument, that's not the argument that I think could have fixed this problem. These people are actively engaged in antitrust. They're engaged in monopolistic practices that are legal under the law of the United States. And President Trump could have cleaned them out in year one. When I tried to explain to him that internet censorship would ultimately potentially cost him re-election, he told me confidently, they'll never censor me. And I said, well, they'll shadow ban you, but more importantly, they're taking away your amplifier. They're taking away your megaphone when they deplatform and censor your many, many, many supporters. And I think it is a major factor. See, in 2016, I think Trump won, not because the media didn't attack him like they did in 2020, because they did, but because of the rise of a robust, vibrant alternative media based in the internet, which is the perfect platform for a counterpuncher like Trump to punch back. But take away that platform, and where can he punch back? He can't. He can't.
He's dead.
So we're in a very dangerous time right now. Even as we speak, there's a campaign of vilification, a campaign of driven by bloodlust, from a bunch of butthurt liberals in the media who can't get over the fact that I escaped the deadly snare of Congressman Adam Schiff and the dirty cops of Robert Mueller because their case was a frame job. And it fell apart when their jury forewoman got busted. Doesn't matter what the court said in the end. The president pardoned me because I didn't get a fair trial. My trial was infected in a number of other ways, but I'm not allowed to discuss some of them. Some of them I can. But there is certainly prosecutorial misconduct. There'll be a formal complaint at the right time. But beyond that, complicit in this is the media. Now, for 2 years, you heard Roger Stone, a guy who got into politics because I was an anti-communist, because I'm a conservative anti-communist and I hated the Russians, and I love Barry Goldwater.
Yeah,
that I was a Russian spy, that I was collaborating with Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, and that I coordinated the timing of the release of their entirely accurate and devastating releases, none of which is true. I was charged in this exotic, convoluted lying to Congress charge. And then nobody saw this, but this election day, November 3rd, 2020, at midnight, the U.S. Department of Justice released the last remaining unredacted sections of the Mueller report, not because they wanted to, but because a federal judge had ordered them to. And it said there was never any factual basis for the prosecution of Roger Stone as a collaborator with the Russians or WikiLeaks or Assange. And we couldn't even prove that he knew anything about John Podesta's emails being boosted. But nobody wrote that, not the swine at CNN or the scum at MSNBC. So now we're in this whole new thing. Yes, I was in Washington, D.C. on the 5th. I gave 2 speeches at legally permitted events. They all fall well within my First Amendment rights. No, I did not call for violence. You can see them online. Go watch them. They're uplifting, they're patriotic, and I was expressing my God-given right to speak. I wasn't at the Capitol on the 6th. I didn't go.
They blame you for it, though.
I never left my hotel.
Crazy.
I did because my life is constantly threatened because I have death threats, not only just against me, but Tommy, against my children, my grandchildren. I have one great-grandson. I had not gone to trial yet. I needed the permission of the judge in my case to travel. I asked for permission to travel to Akron, Ohio, where the child was born. The judge granted my request, for which I am grateful. I flew to Akron to see my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, in the hospital. Evidently, somebody in the hospital recognized me and put it up on social media. There's a telephone in the room, and my granddaughter, while I was standing there, answers the phone and says, "Hello," and she just screams and throws the phone. I said, "What was that?" And she said, someone said, "Your baby is the result of incest with Roger Stone. Your baby will be stillborn," and hung up.
You want to talk about
threats against my great-grandson. That's what we're talking about. So these people they're hysterical. They're drooling.
Evil.
They're drooling. And they're just upset because their last attempt to frame me didn't work, and now we're going to try it again. But here's the problem. There's no evidence to support anything they're saying. I've categorically denied it, and I will again. I assume all my communications with anybody who was involved, if my contact with them was inadvertent or if it was casual, has been examined. This is a case without facts because it's not true.
Oh, yeah. They'll look through every crumb that they can find.
I've been down this.
You know, look, if they want to go after you, fine. That's you. But then when you start involving your family, come on.
Well, I mean, the government's not the one harassing your family, but the media.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
The media stoking people up that I've done something right.
They're fueling the fire.
So let me put it another way. My wife was viciously attacked in front of my house roughly a month ago. Okay. Marshall Cohn of CNN is personally responsible for that. Ari Melber is personally responsible for that. The writers of the New York Times and the Washington Post. Now, when the facts came out that they found no evidence, none of them said anything. The same people who vilified me and who churn up the haters, those are the people who need to apologize.
And they never will.
Well, it's because they're not journalists.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Having worked for 4 presidents, 10 presidential campaigns, been around the block, it is a basic journalistic rule that if a reporter is writing about someone, reporting on someone, that you call and give them the opportunity to comment. They don't have to comment. They can say no comment, but that's how it's done professionally. Now you have turds in the media just writing crap about me without ever giving me a chance to respond, which I'm not saying that I always will, because if you're not from a legitimate news organization, you're just some phony baloney left-wing fake news website trying to justify your existence with smear tactics. Now, I'm not going to take my time, but the people at the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the networks, they have an obligation to ask you for comment. I would argue they have an obligation to put you on camera and let you respond, but they don't think that way. And this is all driven by hate, but more importantly, their severe disappointment that they haven't destroyed me yet.
Well, they don't like that you're winning. You're winning. And also, what happened to the old days when you got a paper newspaper and a real journalist wrote something and they were wrong or incorrect about it, they retracted it.
That never happens anymore. But please understand, the New York Times and the Washington Post now have, in both cases, roughly 2,000 reporters working for them. 80% of what they report does not go into a printed newspaper. Or put it the other way, only 20% of their journalistic output is being printed in a newspaper. The rest of it is online, and it's very highly profitable. Now, why is this dangerous? Well, because they're setting a false narrative. In other words, there was no evidence of fraud in the last election. There were enough anomalies and irregularities for further examination at a minimum. Am I saying there was no, it needed to be examined. That was the whole argument. But their position was, no, there's nothing to look at. That kind of tells you that it bared further examination. But questioning the transparency and honesty of an election, that's not sedition. It's not treason. There's nothing that makes you un-American. It's un-American not to be able to ask that question. In the end, Joe Biden was sworn in as president. I accept that. I don't agree with it, but the Supreme Court wouldn't hear it. They do have that right. The state legislatures, particularly the weak-kneed, white wine-swilling, green pants-wearing, rip-on society, country club, Bush-loving Republican, people who married their own first cousin for 3 centuries, they may not have liked it, but, that doesn't really matter. So it's just gotten to an absurd point where we now learn that one of the people in my security detail that was supplied by the Oath Keepers, because I couldn't find any off-duty D.C. police officers, they say, drove the golf cart that I had to take to get from my hotel to the Supreme Court for a formal permitted speech. They said, CNN headline, Roger Stone's chauffeur arrested in January.
And you said that was today?
Today, minutes ago.
Jeez.
Minutes ago. And it's written by a guy named Marshall Cohn. Breaking. Marshall Cohn's doorman at the luxury building in which he lived has a brother whose cousin was Antifa and arrested in Portland. So Marshall Cohn knew everything and was in on the Portland assaults. Please give me a break.
Please. Now, how do you go about it? I mean, we got the man of all men in here. We got the beast. You're a beast. Now, how do you fix this? Because this media shit's crazy. Like like Roger Stone needs to make 100 fake Twitter accounts.
Well,
You don't need 100. You know, Twitter, they knocked Trump down. Why didn't they knock him down 2 years ago? Because they were making money off all them ads when he went on there and a gazillion. Now, Sleepy Joe gets in, boom, they rip him off Twitter. Well, if he was doing the same thing for 4 years, why wait until now to rip him off?
well, because because unfortunately the people who ran the president's campaign for re-election have no experience with prior campaign management, with one or two exceptions. And I think there was a belief that because Facebook sold us ads anywhere we wanted 4 years ago, why would they not do it again? You know, here's a $500 million check. Although, let's be clear, President Trump raised $1 billion. $600 million went to a secret holding company run by Jared Kushner. We don't know what happened to that money. 20% of their funding got spent on television, cable, radio, phone calls, mailings, the things that actually win votes, other than Donald Trump himself, who's a master campaigner.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to be the other way around. 80% of your budget goes to communications, 20% to overhead and salaries and bullshit. So, you know, the reason I still think the president won is because when he finally busted out of the straitjacket of COVID-19 and started hitting the road, and he goes to places like Detroit and Milwaukee and so on, Philadelphia, the crowd, you know, responds, and he gains ground every time, and they have to cover him because he's there. Otherwise, he's locked in the basement like you know who.
Yeah.
So it is to go to your question, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? It's a pretty easy answer. You have four problems, in my opinion. One, first and foremost, and the keystone to everything else is we can no longer have the total domination, control, and censorship of all mass communications, including cable, network, print, internet, social media, and so on. The way you do that is not dealing with Amazon, Google, Apple, and the other international globalist pirates. They don't own the internet. They're very powerful on it, but they're not the smartest guys on the internet.
Right.
And you can build an alternative platform, and you can let's say, post at that platform a fair, balanced, open to everybody social media site that
where you can use your freedom, right? Freedom of
which
speech.
just by definition will be commercially successful. You could have on that same platform a crowdfunding based site. Now, a friend of mine, Michael Caputo, Irish guy.
Yeah.
Very good friend of mine from Buffalo, was worked with me in Jack Kemp's campaign, with me in Ronald Reagan's campaigns, one of my deputies. A very good guy, an author himself, was recruited by Donald Trump himself to come into the government and help him during COVID-19. Almost immediately, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. And he's battling now for his life. He's doing okay.
Sorry to hear that.
We're praying for him. So some other folks and I put a GoFundMe up for him. My friend Carl Palladino from Buffalo, one of the greatest Americans I've ever known. And we raised a substantial amount of money. We are still fighting with GoFundMe to get his funds. He was on the government insurance program until the last day of the Trump presidency. He was, of course, fired by the Biden people. So his medical expenses are substantial. This is the problem with a number of these crowd funding sources. They let you post, they let you raise money, but then they try to put you through hoops to get the money.
So they won't give the money?
Well, ultimately,
you'll get it, but
other money ultimately will, but they will make you jump through hoops to delay. You know, we need this form, we need that. Right. So the point is that you could use this same platform. You could also use this platform to post a company that does web hosting. Don't let people who will take your URL away from you when the crap hits the fan, or when it's politically expedient for them to do so. You have to be hosted at a place that is going to protect the integrity of your location. So those things can all be done.
So basically, you're saying you would need a big server.
The point is, if you don't solve this problem, then you can't rally public opinion. If you can't rally public opinion, you can't change the election laws. And if you can't change the election laws, there's no point in cleaning up the Republican Party and throwing out the weak-kneed and then nominating somebody for president if the president decides not to run himself, Donald Trump, who can win. But there's no point in going into election with a broken system.
Right. What's the point?
Right, because you will not win. As Abraham Lincoln said, public opinion is everything. So step one is the internet. A lot of people I know are upset about the election laws that were very strategically changed in a number of states by smart Democratic lawyers. You got to wonder what those people, the Republican National Committee, that I bet a bunch of your listeners sent their money to, you got to wonder what the hell they were doing while this was going on. But when the party chairwoman's maiden name is Romney, it kind of tells you everything you want to know. Folks, do not send a penny, not a penny, to the Republican National Committee because they won't spend your money well. And before you send any money to the National Republican Congressional Committee, take a hard look at the races where they are and are not spending it. We had an incredible candidate running against Congresswoman Deborah Wasserman Schultz, a woman who reminds everybody of every man of their first wife. This woman is in an 80% Democratic district. She was deeply involved, as we know from the WikiLeaks disclosures, in the rules changes that stole the Democratic nomination for Hillary Clinton from Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, a man who'd only been in the Democratic Party for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. But he likes the payoff.
We nominated an incredible candidate, a woman named Carla Spalding. She's a Jamaican-American, a Navy veteran, a registered nurse, a mother, a Christian, a woman of great strength and character. She campaigned very, very hard, and she got 45%, which has never been achieved. But she did not get an ounce of help from the Republican National Committee or the Trump campaign, although she was a very early and loyal Trump supporter. So before you give any money to them, I'd see what they were doing.
Now, Mr. Stone, why not?
Well, because they won't spend your. Why did they not do so?
Yeah, like why wouldn't they?
Because the structure leans to more establishment candidates who can be controlled.
Oh, okay.
So, in other words,
we're going back to control.
Well, once they designate you, let's say, as a targeted race, that tells all the corporate lobbyist boys, here's your chance to buy a piece of Tommy. Hey, Tommy, let's have dinner. Here's $5,000 for your campaign. When I come by talking to you about soybean, subsidies, remember I gave you the check. It's the way it works. It's very sad.
Yep.
But everything in Washington, everything is for sale. The special interests and their lawyers and their lobbyists and their contributions and their networks can achieve pretty much everything. And there's very, very, very few politicians who can't be bought. I mean, some places, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not so subtle. But I'm talking about a handful of people. Matt Gaetz from northern Florida, Rand Paul from Kentucky, his father for many years. These people were honest. You didn't have to agree with them on everything, but you couldn't bribe them. And no contribution they ever took was going to have any impact on the decision they made doing their duties. There are good men and women in Congress. Take me a while to think of them, but they are there.
I was just going to say, how many can you count?
Jim Jordan's a good guy. Lee Selden from Long Island's a very good guy, a strong guy. There are a number of people that I think are not in the leadership of their party. They're backbenchers. And therefore, the leadership of the Republican Party, when you first get to Washington, you're a congressman or a congresswoman, they say, pipe down. No. Don't bring up how much this costs. Just wait your turn. When you rise in seniority, then you can talk. And this is the thing I like about guys like Matt Gaetz. I mean, Matt Gaetz is a young guy, but he sees the truth and he'll fight for it. He's not afraid. He's not afraid. He's not going to, take a back beach because some political boss tells him to shut up. That's just not him. So I think he has a great future. I really do. I think that I don't know whether the president will run in 2024. I mean, in politics, 4 years is a lifetime. A lifetime. We don't know what the situation will be in the country at that time. The actuarial tables would suggest that Joe Biden may not be president. We're not wishing that on him. I wish him good health and a long life because I'm a Christian. But we don't know what that situation will be. It's amazing to me that he has yet to do a press conference. If any Republican president had not done a press conference,
boy, can you imagine?
They would have had
it would be on every network right now.
absolutely.
Every network, every radio station, everything, everywhere.
Right,
but there's nothing.
No, Marshall Cohen at CNN would have an erection if that was the case.
Yeah, he would. It would hit his desk.
Yeah.
I don't know what he would do.
Well, depends on. Never.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not going to touch that.
We don't know. We're not quite sure about the desk thing.
So it is. We're in a very dangerous time in America. If we do not fix the internet, or I should say the mass communication censorship problem, then there's no point in fighting about the safety of vaccines. I mean, I think it's not illegitimate to question not the vaccine so much as what's in them. This has been a matter of public discussion for some time. Now, we can get banned for even discussing this, but it is a fact that the federal government has paid out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in damage claims from people damaged in vaccinations. I've had all mine to date. I haven't decided whether I'm going to take the new one. I'm not a spring chicken, but I want to read about it. I want to hear about it. I want to study it, and they make it very difficult to do those things. Now we have a piece in the Washington Post in which some state legislator says people who urge others not to take the vaccination are domestic terrorists and they must be treated that way.
Are you serious?
So let's be clear what he's saying. Under the domestic terrorist laws passed after 9/11, if the government has evidence, or they claim to have evidence, that you are a domestic terrorist, they don't need a judge's order to look at all your communications, email, text, phone calls. They don't need probable cause to detain you and hold you forever without public notice. You can't be bailed out. They don't have to go to a judge for the approval of anything, and they can try you in secret if they choose to. That's not American. That's unconstitutional.
Mr. Stone, how can they do that without going to a judge?
Because no one has ever challenged it in the Constitution, because so far, as far as we know, it has not been used. These are things put in place after 9/11.
Yeah.
That were, designed to go after, I guess, in the public mind, collaborators of those involved in the radical Islamic groups that attacked the country at 9/11.
Yeah, and researching you never know what's what with this, because now that I do this, I can see and edit. So I started watching and reading, some of your interviews, and some of them you're in an interview, you guys are like practically kissing each other in the interview. I was like, wow, that was pretty close. But, watching it, you could see when the edit is in some of the things that are online. So then I would start to watch body language and stuff like that. And what was unbelievable to me is that not just with you, but other things that were related to you, maybe people you were associated with, they were doing searches and phone wiretaps and this and that with no warrant from a judge.
No, I think that's very clear that Mr. Brennan at the CIA and Mr. Comey had a secret program in which they were abusing their authority. That's what they were so anxious to hide. No, Donald Trump's campaign was spied on. Yes, Rod Rosenstein and little Andrew Weissman, the pit bull. More about him later.
Yeah.
He was pretty known for covering up mob murders in New York City. 22 guys got whacked, and he knows who did it. But that guy walked because Andrew lied under oath about his status as an FBI informant. Bingo. Wait till the documentary. In any event, they knew that the Steele dossier was a fraud. That it was a fraud paid for by Hillary Clinton, but they compiled with the assistance of Russian intelligence. So they were right all along. There was Russian collusion, except for it was by Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But those guys,
but you never hear that.
They went to the FISA court and they defrauded the court. Why aren't they in prison, first of all, and why are they still admitted to the bar? Rod Rosenstein, who is the epitypical swamp, lizard. This guy testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee only months ago that he did not authorize the Mueller investigation into Roger Stone. But we have his signed authorization. That means he lied to Congress. Wait a minute, lied to Congress? That's what they charged me with.
Then why isn't he being held?
Here's the difference. Any misstatement I made, if you go back and look and you understand anything, it's entirely irrelevant. There's no immateriality to any crime. This guy lies about a material matter, but he hasn't been prosecuted.
And actually facts on it, and he doesn't have 20 SWAT guys at his door.
It just gets
dirty.
It even gets better and better. The Washington Post reports correctly that Rod Rosenstein, in a meeting with Andrew McCabe, offered to wear a wire to try to entrap the President of the United States as part of a plot to remove him under the 25th Amendment. Mr. Rosenstein is called before the Congress, and he testifies under oath and says, this is absolutely untrue. I never did any such thing. After Joe Biden was elected, he admitted only a week ago that he lied about that and that he did, as Mr. McCabe said, offer to wear a wire. Now, why isn't he being prosecuted? They tried to destroy my life and my family over,
bullshit.
Well, over a totally fabricated, contrived, lied to Congress. I mean, did you exchange emails with Steve Bannon? I don't remember. Well, you did. Here it is. I said, if the email is a link to a story in the Washington Post that morning, so what difference does it make?
Right.
There's nothing to hide. But that's all they could come up with.
But these other guys are having dinner. No SWAT team, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy to hear it.
It's just where we are, and the fake news media continues to push this narrative. Look, let's be very, very clear. Declassified documents released by Rick Grinnell when he was temporary, director of national information prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that the whole Russian collusion thing was a fraud, that Mueller and Rosenstein knew it was a fraud, and any news outlet who wants to go back and talk about Russia like the mental cases at MSNBC, they're just lying. They're lying when the truth is so provable.
I can't watch it.
Well,
I can't watch it. It drives me crazy.
Well, it's not even entertaining. I mean, the point is it just so exudes hate.
Yeah.
They're so hateful and they're so bitter. You would think that they would be very happy, but Joe Biden stiffed him on the minimum wage. He actually came out for a pretty reasonable means test in terms of receiving the aid from this new COVID-19 bill. If Joe doesn't get in line, he may have a primary from AOC. Who knows?
Yeah. It looks like to me eventually it's going to be Harris and, I hate to say it, I'm cringing even saying it, Pelosi.
Well, it's very hard to say. If Biden were to be incapacitated in any way,
I think that's the setup.
Well, but if he were to become legally incapacitated, that judgment was made, and she became president, she would then have the ability to appoint a vice president. That vice president would have to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Now, she could appoint Nancy Pelosi, but that wouldn't make much sense because Nancy Pelosi has more power as Speaker of the House than she would ever have as Vice President.
Who do you think she would appoint?
It's impossible to say, but it'll be someone out of the socialist.
Oh, of course.
The socialist Bernie Sanders before he sold out. See, here's the great thing. Bernie's a socialist. How come he's driving that top-of-the-line Mercedes? Mm-hmm. What's with the multiple vacation homes across the country?
Well, what I think happens is, and obviously you know more than me, but I think he runs every year. The Dempsey a little bit porn.
You're almost right.
And then they go to him and they say, "Hey, Bernie, here's this bag."
No, I don't think so.
No. That's just
No. He's engaged in what boss George Washington Plunkett of Tammany Hall used to call honest graft. Bernie ran for president. Suddenly, Bernie raises a whole hell of a lot more money than Bernie expected to. Mm-hmm. Well, it's because the socialist wing of the Democratic Party is on the ascendancy. Bernie hasn't even been a Democrat in the Senate. He got elected as an independent. He has just joined the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
He's got all this money. Now, when you buy media, whether it's television or cable or digital, doesn't matter what it is, the person who places that gets a commission. That commission can be anything from 1 to 15%. But if you're buying millions of dollars worth of media, 15% is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So instead of giving that to an agency, now the agency would never charge you 15. You negotiate them to 8 or 5 or whatever it may be. This is how it was generally done. Now, I understand this was more prevalent in the day of broadcast, but still very true today. Instead of doing that, Bernie and his wife formed a company, hired some employees, and took the commission themselves, which is perfectly legal.
Good move.
But it's capitalism. Mm-hmm. It's business. Bernie, you hate capitalism.
Right.
Don't tell us about the workers, dude. You're tooling around in a 6-figure Mercedes.
Yeah.
You're an elitist.
Yeah,
You're a fraud.
Where's your
Where's the working people? We talking about your maid? Who are we talking about? So, at least Bernie's. I used to kind of say, I don't like his politics, but at least he's honest. Now he's not even honest. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. He endorsed Joe Biden. Those aren't his politics. Does he believe in anything? I mean, my party nominated Mitt Romney. You know what I said? Hasta la vista, baby. I left the party for 2 years.
Yeah.
Because Mitt Romney was such an insufferable asshole and a fraud. I'm severely conservative. Mitt, you've never been a conservative, but if you were, you'd never describe yourself as severely conservative. That's a negative. You can say you're a compassionate conservative, like Jack Kemp and Ronald Reagan. You can say you're very conservative. You can say you're a fiscal conservative, but severely conservative gives you away. Just totally gives you away. Weak. He's just weak.
Weak. So to fix the media, like what would be the steps you would take to do it? Like I understand like the background.
I think that there are a number of people in the country, entrepreneurs, communications people, some may even be involved in politics in the past, who are building the technical side of platforms that will not be so susceptible to deplatforming, and the proprietors of whom will not allow censorship. That's the answer. Now it'll be an epic fight, but I'm convinced that the venture capital can be found. I'm convinced now, because I'm not very technical, but having met with dozens of software engineers and talked to dozens of experts, I think it can be built. I do think there's a way around their control of the App Store. I'm going to be writing about this and speaking about it a lot, because until we solve this problem, no other problem can be solved. And frankly, I'm tired of CNN continuing to, piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. I'm tired of being accused on things that they have no evidence of whatsoever, because they're baseless. They're false. They're born out of hatred and anger over the fact that their epic attempts to frame me and destroy me financially and to make me roll over on the president and bear false witness against him failed. That's what the prosecution of Roger Stone was all about.
Yeah.
They put the heat on me in July of 2019, kind of at the end of Mueller's Russian collusion probe. And Mueller's problem is he's found no Russian collusion, so he needs some.
And he looked through every...
Oh, they said to me, we have this record of 29 cell phone calls between you and Trump in 2016. All your client has to do is admit this was all about help from the Russians and WikiLeaks, and we'll recommend leniency in his sentencing to the judge. Ungats.
Yep.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
That's lying. That's bearing false witness. The Bible doesn't allow that. It would be wrong. Do I look like Michael Cohen to you? I don't think so.
No, you don't. You actually look like you're 35 and jacked.
Yeah.
I saw it. He's jacked. You watch what you eat?
Pasta's my downfall.
Yeah,
What can I
that
say?
kills you.
I try to, but pasta and a good pizza is very hard to pass up. The pizza in South Florida is surprisingly good if you know where to go.
I found one place over here, Mamma Mia's. It's the only place I could find that. Where do you go?
Vincent's in Fort Lauderdale by the Sea on Commercial Boulevard.
Yeah, that is good.
Very old school.
Yeah.
Now, I believe they're the same people who own Kitchenetta, which is a bit more of an upscale Italian restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, also excellent. Cafe Europa, Las Olas Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, solid, very solid. Not a place for pizza, but for old world Jersey-style Italian food.
Yeah,
We're talking
Mama Pop.
Runway 84,
Yeah.
On Route 84 in Fort Lauderdale. Go there on their meatballs and martini night, and it's like stepping into 1965. The women at the bar have beehive hairdos. There's a lot of mob guy wannabes with chains at the bar.
big gold blocks.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but it just brings back old times.
It does.
And good times. Sometimes good times. When all this shit's going on. Now, when Trump pardoned...
Pardon me for taking a Marco Rubio moment.
Take all the moments you want. Now, when Trump pardoned you, how did you feel?
Well, first of all, I was grateful to the Lord because, you reach a certain point where you realize that you are completely outgunned, that the prosecutors will cheat, that the system is controlled and rigged, that there is no way to win, that the truth doesn't matter, the facts don't matter. It doesn't matter because you're not allowed to present them anyway. You're barred from presenting any reasonable defense. It's a funny thing about my D.C. jury. How could you have a jury without a single military veteran? Or a single evangelical Christian? Or perhaps a Roman Catholic? An African-American male? No, we didn't have any of those. No registered Republicans, no registered independents. All Democrats except for one guy on the Green Party. I mean, come on. This, as Joe would say, come on, man. You reach a point in which your despair becomes very deep because you recognize you're fighting a rigged system. They have unlimited resources. They break the rules with impunity. And it was at that point that I met Reverend Franklin Graham, who was the son of the legendary Billy Graham. I had met Billy Graham when I was working for President Nixon. My opinion, Billy Graham was one of the greatest men of the 20th century. So, of course, I wanted to meet his son. His son doesn't have the same style as his father. He's very effective. He's a fine preacher. I think he's a fine man. He's a fine leader. And, we had a very candid conversation, and I'd hit rock bottom. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was worried about who's going to take care of my wife. How am I going to support my family? Well, it wasn't so much for me as it was concerned for her. And I knew on appeal that my appeal would be a scorcher, which is, I think, precisely why they wanted me to send me to a COVID-19 infested prison right away.
Oh, to whack out.
Despite their own rules and regulations, precedents in the law.
And I'm sure they would have taken care of you at top. You would have had the best.
No, actually, in all honesty, who stepped up when they wanted to send me to this prison in Georgia was the prison guards union. The head came out and said, the government's lying about the number of COVID cases in this prison, and we can tell you none of the CDC regulations are being observed. No gloves, no 6 feet, no hand washing, no nothing. So, and that was the truth. The government said in their filings against me for sentencing, there are no cases of COVID in this prison. There are now over 500 today. So, it was a death sentence.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was a death sentence.
So I've had a near-death experience, and thanks to Jesus Christ, I escaped their deadly snare, and I lived to fight another day for this country.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm being vilified by the human garbage at CNN right now, and why the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these establishment voices. Let me put it another way. All the same people who lied for 2 years about my involvement with the Russians and WikiLeaks are now lying about what happened or didn't happen in Washington, D.C., January 6th.
That's such bullshit.
I know.
It's just
No,
bullshit.
I saw a headline yesterday. Man seen with Donald Trump arrested. Man seen with. That's sick. Sick.
It's sick. It's sick. It's
well,
dirty.
It's just. I'll be honest with you. I have good. ABC's been particularly egregious. They do these videos, which, in my opinion, they show nothing. But then they hype the video. Stone seen with member of the Oath Keepers. Well, there are 4 reporters. Now, I have full-time cameras on all 4 in Washington. Stone TV, investigative television. They're going to have a lot of questions to answer because I can do digital analysis. I can do facial analysis.
Yeah.
A lot of their sources are about to get spilled. 2 can play this game. ABC ain't shit. They ain't shit. I got eyes on all of you.
Listen,
so, it's journalism. It's the new journalism.
And I said, I love this guy.
Go to stonecoldtruth.com. We're going to show you those videos.
Do it. And you got to do the podcast. You'll kill it.
Podcast is coming. We're calling it Perfectly Clear with Roger Stone.
That's going to be a monster.
I'm looking forward to it. The barriers, of course, are the internet censorship. So I can't tell you I have a podcast on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, but I have a feeling word of mouth will get around.
It will. It will. And you know what?
And by the way, Tommy, when they ban you on YouTube, come on over. We'll put you right up.
Sounds good to me.
Put you right up.
No problem. You know what I loved about the relationship that you have with you and Trump? He says he fired you, you quit. Who cares? What I see about it is you quit. Okay. But what I see is through all of that bullshit, you guys stay loyal to each other.
Well, there are some on the hysterical, nutty left who say that was all an act. They needed to move Stone outside the fort so he could do some of the dirty work, and that was, that's all false. We had a fundamental disagreement about campaign strategy, and he was right and I was wrong. I knew that Jeb Bush and the Bush crime family, people who made their money by arming the Nazis, that's where the family money comes from, the Bushes. And then Jeb, his early career in Miami as a drug dealer. It's all documented in my book.
Mr. Stone, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you really think that Jeb Bush actually thought he had a chance to beat?
Oh, I think he was shocked that. First of all, they never understood Donald Trump and the phenomena he is. They never understood his connection with working people. Yeah. The Bush family regarded the Republican Party as their fiefdom, and they were going to take the nomination like one would pick up a checked hat. So I've been a critic of the Bushes. People know this, and they really thought that they would just walk in, and they never understood the power of Trump. They thought he was a cartoon character. They just didn't understand him. But he's the only Republican that could have won. That's what they don't understand. He was the only one who was audacious and gutsy and ballsy enough to hit her as hard as you needed to hit her. Look, Hillary Clinton, because I said lock her up, and then they thought I was going to prison. There's a lot of memes. They didn't age too well, did they? Yeah. Did they, Hillary? Let's be clear. Hillary Clinton is a foul-mouthed, short-tempered, impatient, elitist, entitled kleptocrat who would steal a hot stove. And her role in intimidating and threatening and bullying her husband's sexual assault and rape victims is disgusting, because these women have been assaulted. That's aiding and abetting violence against women. I find that nauseating. I wrote a book on it called The Clintons' War on Women. This is why I think I was targeted. By the way, the prosecutor in my case, the lead prosecutor, Jeannie Rhee, lawyer, previously represented Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation in the email case. But of course, the judge did not find that to be a conflict.
How does he not find that to be a conflict? She, apologize, Your Honor. But how is that not a conflict of interest when you have... Because
it's the D.C. court system, and therefore, as we saw in their ruling on the Flynn case, as we saw on their ruling on whether lawyer Don McGahn had to testify about his conversations with his client, the president, as we saw as their ruling that Hillary Clinton didn't have to answer questions about her email server. There is no law in D.C. The D.C. court system doesn't follow any law. It follows politics. That's what it follows.
That's the law.
That's the law.
And they get away with it.
And they will continue to.
And you know who else confuses me is Comey. He confuses me beyond belief.
I don't understand why. Why?
Well, he's Democrat, right?
These people have. It doesn't matter what their party. Their parties don't matter. So let's take Robert Mueller. They always say Robert Mueller was a Republican. Well, maybe by registration, but he covered up for administrations. I mean, he was the one who takes the uranium samples to Russia to be inspected on the tarmac for the Clintons. But he does cleanup for the Bushes on 9/11. He's not a Republican or a Democrat. He's the cleanup man. He's Harvey Korman. He's Harvey Keitel in help me here, Mongo. My cultural reference is down.
Yeah.
He's the cleanup man. There's no question. James Comey, prior to this election, James Comey's goal was to get leverage, to get dirt on any person, Republican or Democrat, who might become president. He was out collecting dirt on Hillary. He was out collecting dirt on Trump because, let me tell you a great story. You don't think of Richard Nixon as a ladies' man, but they called him Big Dick for a very good reason. And when he was out of office, when he was considered washed up, he was practicing law in New York City, represented Pepsi-Cola, was a major client. And he opened a lot of doors for them in Asia where they were trying to expand their market. And he had to travel through Hong Kong. And there was one particular hostess, shall we say, that Dick really liked. And they may or may not have been intimate. I don't know. But I do know that it came to the attention of the British intelligence, because Hong Kong was a British-controlled place at that time. And they let the FBI know. And J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI. Lyndon Johnson is president. So Hoover knows that he can't legally go surveil an American citizen abroad. That would be illegal. So he asked the British intelligence service, would they put a tail on this and document it? And evidently the Brits shooting pictures through the window of a hotel room window, they get pictures of Nixon with this woman. Now, I don't know if they were in flagrante delicto or whether they were just sitting on the couch talking, it almost doesn't matter. 1968 comes. Nixon makes a terrific comeback. He is no longer out in the cold wilderness peddling, Pepsi-Cola as a lawyer. He's now president of the United States. And in his first meeting, he receives J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director. Hoover has with him an 8x10 manila envelope. As soon as they sit down, he pulls out the pictures of Nixon and the woman, and he says, "Don't worry, Mr. President. These pictures are safe with me." James Comey. James Comey made J. Edgar Hoover look like a Boy Scout when it comes to criminality.
Got it.
The Inspector General of the U.S. Justice Department recommended his prosecution twice for crimes far more egregious than the phony, trumped-up crimes that they brought against me. But Mr. Barr decided not to prosecute. Andrew McCabe, the week I was falsely convicted, the same prosecutor in his case as in mine announced that they would not move forward and prosecute him. He admitted to his crime, lying to the FBI, far more egregious than lying to Congress.
Mr. Stone, I thought Barr was going to be a beast.
Well, then you didn't.
I was wrong.
You didn't understand who he was.
Because, and this is why I said, like a podcast from you, something like, you get the real stuff.
Look, Bill Barr was a CIA lawyer, and he was a Bush loyalist. He denies this, but there's substantial evidence that he was involved in their trafficking of cocaine in and out of Mena, Arkansas, because after the Congress cut off funding of the Nicaraguan Contras by the U.S. taxpayers, the CIA director, Bill Casey, and the Vice President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, came up with a brilliant idea. You see, if you're the cops, you can interdict drugs any place. Now those drugs are yours. You take those drugs, you sell them, you take the money, you give it to the Contras.
Jeez. It just gets dirtier and dirtier.
Right. We know this happened. Oliver North was charged with it. But they were, the idea was to fly the drugs, mostly cocaine, out of Central America into the United States. And initially they tried to fly them into rural airstrips in Texas, but the Texas State Police figured this out pretty quick, and the governor called the President of the United States and said, "You can't be doing this in my state." They stopped. Then they tried to do it. Then they tried to do it from. Actually, I think they tried Louisiana first, and the state police wouldn't go for it. Then they tried it in Texas. The governor and the Texas Rangers wouldn't sign off. But then they found a really friendly governor willing to take his piece of the action. Bill Clinton, the governor of Arkansas.
Isn't that interesting, huh?
So the Bush, this is why I call it the Bush-Clinton crime family. These people have been making money together.
It all leads up,
well,
right?
and people don't understand this, but in the 2016 election, when Donald Trump was closing in on Hillary Clinton, Hillary's in Chappaqua. She's selecting the fabric. She's looking at swatches to pull out the fabric for the curtains in the Oval Office. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is barnstorming Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Richmond, Fort Lauderdale, Miami.
Yeah, what'd he do? 8 in a day?
I mean, just working like an animal. And he's gaining ground by every day. So they were very, very, very overconfident, and they never saw Trump coming. And they had to ultimately derail him, or he would expose all of these things. Barr was an insider from the beginning. So the whole media claim, Barr interfered to fix Stone's sentence. No, the prosecutors in my case tried to give me a sentencing recommendation that gave me additional time for crimes I was not convicted of or charged with. No, I didn't threaten a federal judge. I denied it under the oath. I think the judge doesn't agree with that, but they didn't charge me with that, and I wasn't convicted of that. And if we wanted to go if we had gone to trial on that issue, I think I could have proven my case if I was allowed to. But in their sentencing record, they wanted to give me, 6 months more for a crime I wasn't committed. Or my favorite, I wrote a book called The Myth of Russian Collusion. It's not as good as this book, but it's good. It came out before there was a gag order on me, but the judge said it came out afterwards. You can go to Amazon, you can go to Barnes & Noble. It was definitely published before, but they wanted to give me extra time for that because I violated the judge's gag order.
Upward departure, right?
Right. So Barr, understanding what I was committed what crimes I had been convicted of, and the sentencing guidelines, 7 to 9 is outside the guidelines. And the prosecutors in my case, all of them, but particularly Aaron Zelinsky, because he said it under oath, they claim that they were put under political pressure by higher-ups in the Department of Justice to go easy on Stone and knock down his sentence. Now, the Washington Post has reported that the 3 top non-political career prosecutors at the Justice Department all denied under oath that anything like that ever happened. But Mr. Zelinsky said it under oath to the House Judiciary Committee, which means he lied. When is he being prosecuted? There's going to be a bar complaint against him and a formal complaint because he's still with the department. But when is he being prosecuted? The answer, of course, is never, because we have a two-tier justice system. But, these things, if you don't bring them out, you're never going to hear them from CNN. So,
never. You're not going to hear them anywhere.
No.
So when you say two-tier justice system.
Well, if you are a rich elite and you see things, in the conventional way, and therefore, for example, when people come to you and say, I've got a really lucrative deal, you're going to love this. Okay, go ahead. As a country, the United States, let's have all of our most important medicines, all of our most important pharmaceuticals made in China. What do you think? They'll pay us millions. No one says, well, what if they cut us off and there's no medicine for the American? Nobody says that. They all say, really? How much can I get? What's my piece?
Yeah, what's my kick?
I mean,
right?
I just want to know who approved the idea of making our most important medicines and pharmaceuticals made in China. Was it the Clintons? Was it the Bushes? Was it both of them? The answer is it was both of them. Plus Obama. So no one is saying what's best for the American people. The last guy to do that, his name was Donald J. Trump.
Yeah.
And they hate him for it because he put America first. No, America first is not racist. It's not nationalist. It's not white supremacy. That's a bunch of crap. The Proud Boys, they're white supremacists. Really? All the ones I know are black or Hispanic.
Yeah. And he let out more African Americans than any other president, from what I know. And Harris, who, right now is the vice president, she put more people in.
No, never mind Harris. Joe Biden is the man who wrote the law that requires the harsh mandatory penalties for the first-time nonviolent crime of possession by an individual with no previous criminal record. So if you think
he did the mandatory minimum?
If you think the system, if you think that the system, by the way, Joe Biden's law, just to be clear, you get there's a harsher, rougher penalty for possession of rock cocaine than powdered cocaine. Who's that about? That's aimed at black people.
Yeah.
That's aimed at poor people. That's racist.
Yeah.
And we know how the system works. The rich guy who's using powdered cocaine can go hire some expensive lawyer who's connected and they walk. But if you're some poor black kid and you get caught with half a joint, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. That's wrong.
20
it's
years,
racist.
and it's the same thing.
Now, Joe Biden...
No, that is racist.
Joe Biden in 1972 ran for the Senate, and his principal plank in his campaign was his opposition to the desegregation of the Wilmington schools. He said, and I quote, "It would be a racial jungle, and I don't want my daughter going to school in a jungle." And Joe Biden has the nerve in a debate to accuse Donald Trump of the dog whistle. Joe, you're a racist. Your 94 bill shows you're a racist. Your first campaign for the Senate shows you're a racist. You're palling around with James O. Eastland and Herman Talmadge and all the segregationist buddies of yours. You were in the segregationist caucus. You were in the anti-busing caucus. Don't claim to be John F. Kennedy. Don't claim to be Martin Luther King. You're not a civil rights leader. You never have been. Donald Trump, in the First Step Act and the Second Chance Act, has done more for criminal justice reform to positively affect black people who have been indiscriminately screwed by these laws.
Yeah, I know guys that got 25 years for crack.
First of all, let's be clear.
At like 18, they didn't know what they were doing. Bad neighborhood.
Let's be clear. These people are not violent criminals.
Right.
They don't pose a danger. They belong in drug treatment programs. But when you send to prison, you destroy their lives, you destroy their families, and who's going to pay to incarcerate them for the next 20 years?
The taxpayer.
Right. So even if you're a conservative, these laws don't make sense. These people are not violent criminals, and that is not the way to handle the problem.
And there is no rehabilitation in there. There's no rehabilitation in there.
No, I actually think it's deterioration. Look,
deterioration is absolutely
drug
right.
abuse is not a criminal justice problem. It's a public health problem. You're not talking about drug dealers and kingpins. Go after them.
Right.
Absolutely. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the end user. That's just and the only the Democrats talk about this, but they don't do anything about it. Donald Trump did something about it. I think it's among his greatest achievements.
I agree with
That's
you.
why I say constantly, he is the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln. Boy, that drives the liberals crazy.
It does, but it's true because nobody could get to him.
Yep.
You couldn't buy him, you couldn't pay him off, and he said what he wanted, and they just fucking hated it.
I agree.
They hated it to death, and I mean, he did everything. I mean, how does a guy his age go?
I mean, look, he didn't do everything.
When I say everything, I mean to try to win the election. I mean, he busted his ass.
Well, there's no question about it. He had a lot of structural impediments. The censorship of the media, the censorship of the internet, particularly, was a structural problem. Clearly, no preparation for the possibility of voting irregularities, which shows not much planning. And why he never fired the FBI director and the CIA director is very hard to know. Why? I do think, to defend him, though, and I'm certain of this, he gave a number of declassification orders for documents that the bureaucrats simply ignored and hoped he would forget about it. And they just would never release the stuff. Rick Grinnell is a great American patriot. He went in there and fought the bureaucrats, and he got us the proof. Mueller and Rosenstein lied. The Russian collusion thing was a hoax. Washington Post, New York Times, shove it up your keister. Where's your apology? Everything you wrote was a lie. A lie.
And Mr. Stone, this comes out for what, one day, and it's gone?
So,
but then...
No, they harp on crap, but that's fine. The American people have wised up. That's the cool thing. Talk to the average person in the street. They know CNN is full of crap.
Yeah.
They don't like any of those people. Chris Cuomo's a buffoon. I mean, the guy always treated me pretty well, and I got along with him pretty well. But I remember after one show, we're talking casually, and he says, you got to do something about controlling your temper. Can you imagine? All right.
What'd you say to that?
No, I'm not gonna kick the guy. We always get along pretty well. Our politics are very different. I laugh at some of the ridiculous political conclusions he reaches, but Mike Smerconish does a show there at CNN on Saturday, political show, which I think is really, really first rate. People should check it out. He's an honest guy. He used to be more conservative. He's moved to the left, but he's got very shrewd analysis.
So who would you say is worse? Newsom, Schiff, Blasio, who actually isn't even Blasio. He's
no. Well, first of all, Bill de Blasio is not an Italian American. He's
his
German.
name is Warren
Wilhelm, right?
Yeah.
So he should not.
Or Cuomo.
He should not try to pose as one of God's chosen people, the Italians. So let's go through your list again.
Okay, my list is Newsom, Schiff, Blasio, and Cuomo.
Newsom is just a spoiled, good-looking rich guy. And he has just taken their politics to the logical level. California has destroyed himself. This is the ultimate result of too much liberalism. People now think the public streets are toilets.
Yeah,
that's what liberalism gets you. Mm-hmm. But he's not smart enough to be dangerous. Adam Schiff is the most diabolical, dishonest, shifty, huckster con man in the history of Congress. He violated the House rules and the law in my case. It will be proven ultimately. Now he wants to run off to become Attorney General. So Adam,
he wants to run off to be Attorney General?
Attorney General of California. Let's be very clear. You're not getting to the U.S. Senate, Adam. No, Senator Feinstein screwed you, and the governor's about to screw you again. You're not getting Kamala's seat either. So you have to run back for Attorney General, so maybe you can run for governor, so that could be your new grift. No, I think that the facts will catch up with him. This guy colluded with the Ukrainians. I think he got caught on the radio. I mean,
what an idiot.
I mean, if it's Schiff, flush it.
Yeah.
The guy, I wrote a terrific piece just before I was charged. You said that you have seen actual evidence of Russian collusion. We're waiting. You said it multiple times. Where is it? You're being called out. You said it wasn't. You said it was more than insignificant, I believe. We're waiting for it. You never had it. And your butt boy, Eric, swallows well. I mean, this guy gets caught completely compromised by Chinese intelligence, by a red spy who he's bedded. She's planted someone in his office. He's still on the House Intelligence Committee where he has access to classified documents. So they're getting shipped right off to Peking. I mean, what are we talking? But this Congresswoman Green, who I disagree with on a number of things, she gets kicked off of a committee for expressing her opinion that they don't like. I don't even recall what it was about. I'm not sure I agreed with her. but the people in her district voted her in by 70%. And Eric Swalwell, who called me a Russian spy, hey, Eric, you're a Chinese spy. You were colluding with the Chinese. You're busted cold.
But you never hear that.
And then you have the balls to show up in the impeachment. Dude, you're a criminal. You're a traitor. You're the traitor. You called me a traitor for 2 years. Dude, now we have proof. You're the traitor. It's so enjoyable. He's such a dopey surfer boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like he smoked a doob just before he goes to the House floor. He's dumb as a rock. Anyway.
But it just gets dirtier and dirtier and dirtier as it goes on.
This is the life we have chosen.
It is. So it is. And Cuomo?
Andrew Cuomo is a very smart, very tough, very vicious, play for keeps pal. And he's made the classic mistake. No great New York governor, no powerful New York governor, not even Nelson Rockefeller, has ever been able to serve more than 2 terms successfully. The third term is always a curse. Andrew Cuomo, who has no philosophy or ideology, he's not a liberal, he's not a conservative. He knows when to sound liberal, he knows when to sound conservative. He used to be against gay marriage, he used to be pro-cop, he used to be anti-weed. Now he's pro-gay marriage, he's anti-cop, and he's pro-legal weed. He's always been able to be progressive enough. He's a great, great family name. He's very disciplined, he's very tough, and he's very mean. And you don't want to cross him. He's made many, many enemies, but he's kept all of his enemies at bay because he's a master politician. He's a master fundraiser. But he now that he has slipped, all the knives are out. I haven't read all the allegations against him, and I still believe in America. Even Andrew Cuomo should have his day in court. Even Andrew Cuomo is not guilty until proven guilty, and just rushing out in glee because you oppose him politically until the charges against him are proven, I think is wrong. And I haven't commented on it. I do think that he was never going to be president anyway. You're going to choke when you say this because he's too moderate for the Democratic Party, and he's not a moderate.
Yeah.
He's a liberal. But the socialists would never buy him. So far, Adam Schiff is the villain of that crowd.
He's the villain of that crowd, huh?
Who else? You had one more.
I knew some Schiff, Blasio, and Cuomo.
No, de Blasio, let's be clear. The guy's stoned 24/7. I mean, stoned. He's not doing the job. The New York City that we knew when we were kids.
Yeah.
I'm told it's a ghost town. I mean, that it's over.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I even 3 or 4 years ago, I think was the last time I was there. And you know where I went to go? You remember this? The Rainbow Room. I went to the Rainbow Room to eat, and I'm not there anymore because I hadn't been there in years.
Well, the Rainbow Room, for those who don't know, was this fabulous Art Deco nightclub that was on the roof of the NBC building in Midtown Manhattan in Rockefeller Center. And it had an extraordinary view of Manhattan, and it was very, very cool 30s Art Deco. You kind of expect George Raft to walk in at any moment with Carol Lombard on his arm or something, It's just a great spot. But the 21 Club, gone.
Yeah.
It is all the great saloons in Washington, all the great saloons in New York City are essentially gone. Elaine's gone. The 21 Club,
Elaine's gone too?
Gone. Long gone. It's I don't know the status of the seafood place that's in the basement in Grand Central Station, but I would be shocked if it's still there.
Probably not.
These were the great days. I mean, this was one of the great.
I used to do that. I used to do that in the early 2000s. I used to go to the Rainbow Room and sit there, and you never know who would walk in.
Right.
And they had good food, and everybody was friendly. It was like a little, and you'd look and you'd see somebody like, I know who that is, and you try to picture it and guess who it is. It was a great place.
It was.
Great view.
Oh, I hear a martini calling my name right now. So. You're making me hungry. I'm ready to have ready to have a cocktail and have a little pasta maybe.
Pasta? You like red sauce or white sauce?
Well, it depends, but here's one thing: you never put cheese on seafood. If you ever did it at my mother's table, you get slapped.
You know what I think of when I think of growing up? The gravy spoon.
Yes.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
I got more than I should have invested in gravy spoons.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
So you got that. So what do you think Trump's doing over here in Mar-a-Lago? And if you lived in a cave and you don't realize that was formerly the president's offices or one of them.
Mar-a-Lago, it's funny because when he was thinking about buying it, Mar-a-Lago was built by Meriwether Post, of the Post cereal fortune. And it is a fabulous, fabulous property in the Spanish style. There's a lot of handwork, a lot of hand-painted tile from Italy and so on. It's a gorgeous. But when she died, she left it to the federal government. The government just boarded it up, and it became pretty run down. And then they decided to sell it, and Donald Trump decided to bid on it, and he bought it. And he did a meticulous renovation. Now, he has an apartment within the building that is extraordinary in itself, extraordinary. But it's a great, he ultimately converted it to a club. I walked through it with him when he was thinking about buying it, and it was really beat. And I looked at it, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, you can see it was once magnificent, but it would be very expensive to bring back." And he said, "No, I'm going to make a bid. I can make this work." And of course, he restored it. But then, sometime afterwards, I was in New York. I was coming back. He was coming back to Palm Beach. I needed to get back to Fort Lauderdale, although I think then I was living in Miami. So I was hitching a ride, and he said, and we were flying to Miami, which is different because he usually flew on weekends. On Fridays, he would fly from New York to Palm Beach. But in this case, we were going to Miami, which was good for me. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, the Doral is for sale, the Doral Country Club, and I'm going to go out and look at it. Why don't you come with me?" So I said, I did. Ivanka was with us. And we did a walkthrough, and it was really beat. I mean, it was right out of 1965, 70 maybe. And I looked at it, and I couldn't say it. I said, "Boy, I don't know why anybody would buy this." He said, "You're so wrong. If I can get this at the right price, it can be magnificent." If you haven't been to the Trump Doral, it is indeed magnificent.
Yeah. So, but he's there now, right?
He's there, and look, if he wants to run again, he'll be the nominee. But if we don't fix the internet censorship problem, we can't fix the election law problem, and then can't clean up the Republican Party, he'd be behind the eight ball, and he's still the greatest campaigner the party has ever created. So, I still think he holds a lot of cards. He has the deep affection of the American people, at least half of them. He has the loyalty of people like me. If he runs again, I will be for him. If he does not run again, I'll be for another candidate. But I think he has the right to make that decision before anybody decides what they're doing.
And what do you think about Julian, I always mess up his name, Assange?
I think he should have been pardoned. I think it's outrageous that he was not pardoned. No, Mr. Pompeo, who wants to run for Donald Trump's seat, no, he's not a state actor, and you can't prove that because it's false. No, he did not work for the Russians. You're listening to jackasses at the New York Times and the Washington Post. They have no evidence of that. It's a fraud. Part of the fraud that was perpetrated on the people by Mr. Mueller and Mr. Rosenstein. They indicted 17 Russians, but I can tell you right now, they don't have proof that those Russians did anything. It's a John Brennan-created lie. Julian Assange was a journalist. He got and he published confidential, in some cases, classified information, just like the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. So if he's in jail, why aren't they in jail?
Right. So if you're going to go after him, you got to get everybody
So they
else.
invented a hacking case against him, but what they really put him in jail for is embarrassing the U.S. government. He proved to us that they have lied us into war and cost us billions. That's what he's been punished for. I don't know him. I've never met him, even though the Washington Post insists I had dinner with him.
Oh, of course.
But I said consistently, no, I don't think he's a Russian spy. Everything he's ever published, nothing has ever been questioned for accuracy or authenticity. Can the New York Times say that? Can the Washington Post say that? Of course not.
Can CNN, MSNBC.
Trump should have pardoned him. I think not pardoning him was a mistake. God knows what they told the president to convince him not to. Pompeo cannot be trusted. Pompeo is not a conservative. He's not for America first. He has not been loyal to the president. No. And I don't know what he's thinking of. He's a fat ass. This is the television age. Yeah. This is about charisma. He has no charisma. So in any event, if you're looking for if the president doesn't run, a lot of people talk about Ron DeSantis, the governor here in Florida. He's doing a very good job.
Yes, he is.
Matt Gaetz, it would be high on my list because the guy has courage. By the way, he would be older than Jack Kennedy when Jack Kennedy was elected president in 2024. So he's a youthful face, but he's got enough gravitas to do this. Josh Hawley from Missouri, somebody I really like. I'm not committed to anyone other than Donald Trump. If he runs, I'm for Trump.
If DeSantis does run, do you think he's ready? Or
Well,
do you think he will? I mean, like you said, 4 years is kind of a lifetime.
Well, I don't know if he'll ever be ready, because I think to become president in the television age, one needs a certain kind of personality. You have to, you have to look people in the eye. There's a certain warmth. I mean, Ron seems to be a little cold and robotic. His policies are terrific. I mean, COVID, he's done a good job. I think that the state's legal medicinal marijuana program sucks. John Morgan, a good friend of mine, Democrat out of Orlando, put his money where his mouth was and got a constitutional amendment passed because the legislature would never legalize it, recognizing that cannabis is so much safer and more effective than opioids. And then the Republican legislature set up a system that makes it so expensive and difficult for people to get it for medicine that I suspect they walk down to the corner 7-Eleven, they're getting higher quality weed, and it's addressing their medicinal problems without paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to the state and to doctors, and in a system that is purposely set up so people won't use it by the Republicans in the legislature.
And on top of that, if you go into a actually regulated medical marijuana facility, you know what you're getting. You go down the street, you don't know what they put in there.
Well, that's true, but the other problem is under the Florida law, you can get a prescription for medicinal marijuana if you have cancer or HIV or glaucoma. What if your back hurts? What if your back hurts and it hurts bad?
Right.
Oh, take these OxyContin? No, but you can't. But you can't get cannabis under the Florida law,
right? Well,
because the law that Ron DeSantis signed doesn't do that. The original law the government that the legislature passed in Florida said you couldn't smoke it. You could only get it. You could only vape it or get edibles.
I almost fell over when I read that.
Poor people cannot afford that. That discriminates against poor people and minorities. And thank God John Morgan went to court and got that knocked out. Of course you can smoke it. It's the cheapest way to get it. We didn't legalize it for recreational purposes. It's medicine, and around the Israelis use it to treat PST in their hospitals. Wake up.
And it works.
Yes, of course it does.
And look at Portugal.
Well, it's far safer. Far safer than opioids.
Oh, absolutely.
This is not a new position for me. I've been talking about this for 30 years, but people tell you I'm a right winger. So anyway.
But Mr. Stone, doesn't by legalizing it, right? It stops the OxyContin, because you take the OxyContin, but Big Pharma loves it because they give you the Oxy.
That's why but here's how it always works. Big Pharma always opposes the legalization of cannabis for anything, medicinal or recreational. But once the state legalizes it, they move in to control it immediately. So they control their competition.
They control it.
So in order to get it in Florida, you have to go to a certain doctor, and that doctor has to have all your medical records from your own doctor, and then you can only be certified for a very specific and limited number of diseases. And then based on that, your name goes on a state registry. Once you're on the registry, now you have to go back to the doctor, but not any doctor, that same doctor. Mm-hmm. You got to pay him again. Mm-hmm. So you paid the doctor, the state, the doctor. You still don't have any weed.
Yeah.
Now he gives you a prescription, but you look at it and say, wow, this is pretty weak. And he says, sorry, that's what we're allowed to give you. So now you go to the state dispensary and you purchase your cannabis and you use it, and your back feels better, or your glaucoma is better, whatever it is. Not your back, because they won't give it to you for that. Now you want some more. Guess what? Got to go all the way back to the beginning.
And
same doctor, be recertified, get a new prescription. So you can spend $1,000 before you have a single toke. It's ridiculous.
But nobody mentions that. Nobody mentions that. Hey, Mr. Stone is concerned about the Oxycontins, the benzos, and all that other stuff. That could be fixed, help aided by cannabis that you're not going to get addicted to. You're not going to, then go through withdrawal from it, and then you need more pills and more pills and more pills, and it just goes on and on and on.
I do. All right, well, it's been great to be with you.
Yeah,
I'm starving, so we've got to move this
I'll
along.
let you get out of here.
I'm so hungry. You started this whole discussion.
I shouldn't have let you walk by the restaurant downstairs.
Now I'm famished, but so if you want to check up on what I'm up to, go to stonecoldtruth.com. Now, right now, it's still kind of in the formation, but there'll be a total revamp there. My podcast will appear there 5 days a week. I'm going to do a weekly Saturday radio show, which we'll announce pretty soon. I have a new book coming, which is entitled Roger Stone Did Nothing Wrong, My Political Prosecution and the Loss of the 2020 Election, because I was unconstitutionally gagged through much of my trial, and therefore people don't really know how corrupt this whole thing was, but without violating any government seal, I can still tell you the truth about what happened, and I can document it. And the reason it's interesting is not just because it's me, because your freedoms can disappear tomorrow. You think that you have a constitutional freedom to travel, to speak, to make a living in any way you want? No, that can all be taken away with the blink of an eye by a big, oppressive police state, which is what we're getting in this country.
And when's that book coming out?
Hopefully September. There are a couple hot documentaries in the works. There's some people out of Hollywood doing a documentary called The Case Against Roger Stone. I think that at least I've heard this from a guy at Variety who's a friend of mine. I've been trying to track it down. There's a couple other documentaries in the works from what I hear, although they may be, I think they're foreign. Someday I may tell my own story in a film documentary based on the book, but I'm not doing that right away. I too want to move on. In other words, being under the federal, under the gun from the feds with 200 lawyers working on my case and millions of dollars to poke into every corner of your life, your family life, your social life, your sex life, your business life, your political life, your family life, your church life. They're poking into, and it's not just asking questions; it's making assertions. To make sly implications. One of my best friends, a woman named Kristen Davis, she had been a very successful entrepreneur, and she ran the largest call girl ring in the United States. She supplied girls for Eliot Spitzer, the fallen governor of New York. She went to prison. She did her time. She came out. She became a Christian. She has a son. She's a single mother, and that boy is my godson, and he's an amazing kid. No, I'm not his father. Why would FBI agents go around asking people that?
Just to be assholes.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't matter to me. He's a great kid.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
It's just nauseating, but it's a broken system. But we can't give up the fight,
No, you got it. Just like you say, you get knocked down, you get back up.
I think President Nixon put this best when he said, "Until one has been in the deepest valley, one cannot appreciate the majesty of the highest mountaintop. A man is not finished when he's defeated. He's only finished when he quits."
That's beautiful.
I will never quit.
That's beautiful. And with that, I'll let you go get something to eat, because that's a good end.
Just remember this: Roger Stone did nothing wrong.
And he's going to come back into MSCS, right?
Indeed.
I'll get you back in for part 2.
Yes, I think I can probably be done.
Yeah, because we got a lot more to go. All right, I got your word.
Next time I come back, I'll lay out my personal recipe for Sunday gravy.
Please do.
Now, it's in this book. If you can't wait, the Sunday gravy sauce is in here.
I want you
1/3 pork, 1/3 veal, 1/3 beef, San Marzano tomatoes, a can of tomato paste in a long time.
1/3 veal?
Yeah, 1/3 veal. If you can't get the mortgage to buy the veal, you can go half and half ground pork and ground beef. Veal is very expensive, but it
gives more flavor, right?
Well, I also like to have a little diced and sautéed carrot and celery in there, just a little bit.
Oh, because that's celery.
But cream does not belong.
No, you can't put cream in there.
That's technically a bolognese, and I'll pass. This is Sunday gravy. It's a different thing. You understand.
I understand.
Now, people all over the country want to argue about this. No, it's not gravy, it's sauce. Dude, it doesn't matter whether you call it sauce or call it gravy. What matters is whether it's good.
Yeah.
And if you're using San Marzano tomatoes and you know what you're doing, a lot of garlic, it's going to be good.
It's going to be damn good. And there's white and red.
Exactly.
White and red, and it's sauce.
All right. Let's go
to dinner. I got your word. You're coming back in, and I know you're a man of your word. So thank you very much for your time. I very much appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
And he didn't do anything. And he's a great man. He's a gentleman. And he cares about this country. He loves this country. And I couldn't be more honored to be sitting across from you, Mr. Stone. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Also, thank you to Sean Rappuccini for the connection. Also, his fiancee Gabby, Chelsea, and everybody that helped this come through.
A group of great American patriots.
Always got to remember who helped you.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Great to be with you.